Jersey, which is where I grew up, and said, you know, there's this guy in the Lions Club with me who draw comic books. And I go, come on, I don't believe it. He goes, no, really. He goes, do you know the name Al Bellman? And I said, no, I don't know the name Al Bellman. I said, what, did you draw for Classics Illustrated or Archie or something? He said, no, he worked for some guy named Stan Lee. Does that name mean anything to you? And I said, oh my God, Dad, take me to your next Lions Club meeting. I got to meet this guy. And not only did I meet Al Bellman for the first time when I was 15, but he then also drew me one of the characters he drew in the Golden Age of Comics, the Patriot. And I took one look at it, I go, oh my God, this looks like Simon and Kirby artwork. And I still have it framed today in my office. Al is more than a friend. Al is somebody I admire and respect. He is a mentor. He is an inspiration. Because first of all, this is his 70th year as a comic book artist. Al has worked in 8 decades and is truly the last of the Marvel artists of the early golden age of comics. The guys who worked on Captain America, the Human Torch, Submariner. He's the last of the entire greatest generation for Marvel Comics. Stan is the last writer from that generation. And Stan, as you know, is going to be celebrating his 90th birthday at the end of December, which is really pretty incredible. But beyond that, Alan not only was there with Marvel starting in '42, but he was there during the transition when Marvel moved from Timely Comics with an accent on superheroes to Atlas Comics and the Frederick Wertham Seduction of the Innocent era, which we're going to talk about too, which involved not only detective stories, crime stories, fantasy and mystery stories, but horror comics as well. And I want to take us through Alan's times recreating the Marvel bullpen for us back in the Golden Age, taking us through what it was like to live through the Wertham era of comics in the 50s, the impact that had. And then I will open it up to you folks so we can really have a round robin. And since there's just this intimate group, if while we're talking there's something that strikes you or you have a question or something, just pop in on the conversation and let's keep it going that way. So first let me introduce to you guys the living legend of Marvel Comics, Al Bellman.
Okay, my name is Alan Bellman. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you so much for the beautiful word you said to me. It means so much to me, coming from a gentleman of this high esteem. I got to say a few words about this gentleman.
No, it's not my panel, it's your panel.
I don't care. I got to say it. This gentleman bought the rights for Batman. They scoffed at him at DC Comics. Your dad told me this. But he said, screw you, I'm going ahead. And he had a foresight. Oh, he had to knock on a lot of doors. But in that case, we all do in life. And it worked out. And of course, it's coming out this July. And
July 20th.
Rises.
Thank you. Lots of luck. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. So, could you tell us how you got started in the business, how you became a comic book artist in the 40s, and what it was like working at Timely Marvel in the early days? That's from the camera, right? Is that right? Yeah.
You sent me a wire. Well, I was all of 18 when I saw an ad in the New York Times. They wanted someone to do backgrounds on Captain America. I said to my dad, it was Columbus Day, 1942. I said to my dad, I'll go tomorrow. I said, they might be closed. He said, no, you go today. And we went back and forth, and I succumbed. I don't know whether I was afraid of rejection, but I went down there. They were located in the McGraw Hill building on 34th, I believe, or around that area in New York City. I went up and the receptionist said, someone will be with you. A gentleman by the name of Don Rico came out. He did the Young Allies. And he took my samples, and it wasn't on more than 10 minutes. He came back and said, "You're hired, come in on Monday." So Monday comes around, and I'm all excited, and Don Rico greets me, and he introduces me to the rest of the staff. Well, at that moment, I noticed there was something not right in that office room. There was, I'm trying to think of the word. There was something there that told me there was two sides to a story here. Don Rico seemed to have his group, which included Frank Coy and some other gentlemen I can't remember at the moment. And then there was Sid Shores and Vince Alatia. Sid took over Captain America when Kirby and Simon Kirby left for D.C. Now, I got the feeling that Don Rico was somewhat jealous of Sid, who I became a very good friend with later on. And he resented him, and you know, when you go and see dissension in an office like that, what is a guy to do? You keep your nose clean, and you know, you stay on each, you stay friendly with both people, you know, it's a matter of, you're a new guy, what are you doing? And okay, so they gave me background to do, and I'll be very honest with you. I was not very happy, but it was drawing lines with a ruler. But it wasn't long before they gave me my own scripts to do. And the first one I had done was a story called The Patriot. And after that, I was given other scripts, The Destroyer, My God, So Hard for Me to Remember. I worked on Captain America, I worked on Submariner, Human Torch, War Story, whatever Stanley threw at me, I did. Horror story, westerns. Now, to draw a horse, it's very difficult. And when he gave me a western, I couldn't say, "Hey Stan, I don't want this story. I don't walk away from a challenge." So I got what we call swipes, pictures of horses. And you know, I look back now at these horses, and I said, I did a pretty good job. Because I wanted to do a good job. And I've got to remind there was are you leaving so early? Well, come again, have a nice day. I'm sorry, I apologize. You got two celebrities here, how dare you walk out there? But anyway, Stan had an uncle called Uncle Robbie. Everybody called him Uncle Robbie. He was a very small gentleman who sold or owned a woman's hat shop. He sold ladies' hats. Ladies' hats were very, very popular in the olden days. I refer to the golden age of comics. And he walked around, and of course, nobody said to me, "He's the boss. He's not the boss. This guy." I had to figure it out for myself. I didn't see Stanley right away. It was maybe a week or so later. I saw Stan following around Uncle Robbie, walking behind him. He was a young man at the time. I was 18, he was maybe approaching 20. And I never really knew who my boss was, who Stanley was. Nobody said anything to me. But after a while, Uncle Robbie became very aggressive to the artists. He went around and said, "You got to draw like Blue Fine, or draw like McAvoy." These were very fine artists working for another company. In the meantime, Martin Goodman, the publisher, was now selling every company, including DC Comics. So, you know, when a man thinks he's an art director, when he's not, did not use his head. If we're doing good, look at Superman, the drawing was very crude. Look at Dick Tracy, drawing was very crude. So it's not the drawing, it's the style, it's the story matter that really matters. After a while, Uncle Robbie unfortunately passed away as a young man. And then I knew Stanley came forward and Stan took over the reins. When I say he took over, he wasn't a man being very art. He was the art director, and everyone knew it. I had done something in a panel, one panel had a cup of coffee or whatever. The next panel, the cup was gone, I didn't draw it. He said, what happened to the cup? I said, I don't know, maybe the waitress took it away. In all reality, he was sharp. He used to play the flute. Yeah, a flute. But this told me something about him. That this man was a genius. Not everybody plays the flute and plays the business, even though you're related to their publisher. But the fact is, Stanley made Marvel comics. He and he alone. There's no other person. Carmine Infantino tried to make something on DC Comics, he failed. But Stan, all through the years, he knew how to present the comic book. Stanley presents, he gave everyone credit. It was like watching a movie. It just wasn't a blind comic book. It had every comic book he edited and wrote for had a style of its own.
I have to say, Alan, Joe Simon, who you all may know passed away this past December. Joe used to tell me how when he was the first editor really at Marvel Comics back in 39 and 40, 41, before he and Jack left for DC Comics. And Joe said that he and Jack were continually annoyed by Goodman's cousin, the little kid who was about 17 years old, who was sweeping up the offices and playing, he used to say, the goddamn flute, and just annoying the heck out of him with this flute. And finally, Joe said, just to shut him up, I gave him a Captain America story to write and keep him busy, and that's actually what started Stan on his writing career. I think his first story was a text story in Captain America #3. But you know, we hear so much about the Marvel bullpen, and that became a thing really starting in the 1960s in the Silver Age. Was there a Marvel Timely Comics bullpen in the 40s at the McGraw-Hill Building or later in the Empire State Building? And if so, what was it like? Was it fun and games? Was it hard work? Did people like each other, hate each other, play jokes on each other? What was it like?
Very simple. There was hate and love. For instance, let's take Alan Chaffee, who went on Today magazine. He loved to give people hot foots. A hot foot is when you take a batch and you put it on a guy's soul and you light it. How the heck he ever got his work done, I don't know. But he was noted as a prankster, a funster. Then we had Edwin Yansky tell the story. He signed his comics to win. His wife was pregnant and the house was dark. He saw her coming in the house. He put his hand in the freezer of the refrigerator, and when she walked in the house, he put it around her neck. This is the truth, the story he told. That woman could have given birth. But we had our crazy ways, our crazy moments. One time, we had two rooms, the illustrators and the animators. They drew Siggy Pig and
the funny books.
Yeah, the animators. In fact, Walt Disney once sent a letter telling them stop copying our stuff over soup. But one day I looked out and I sat near the window in the Empire State Building. I saw this animated figure. These guys were working from another window and making it move. I mean, you know, it's a lot of work and trouble. But these were the character, the personalities of the animators. And then we had, in the illustrators, Mike Sikowski, a beautiful artist, a great artist, with a bad attitude. he would sit back like this all day. How the heck did he ever get his work done? Well, he did. He was fast, he was good. And I once said, how you doing there? And he said, why do you care? And I walked away, I didn't care. But I work with people that each one has a story to tell. I'm still trying to get somebody to write a book. As Harold Robbins wrote about the movie industry, there was one book I've written about the comic book industry called, what was in it? Yeah, Carol and Claire. And I still feel that someone could come along and write something, because the comic book industry had its interests. Everyone had a story to tell. Each guy was different. One guy was getting divorced, one guy was this, but another story, there was a girl working there called Violet Barkley. She was a beautiful girl. I went to the high school in industrial art with her. She used to stand on the set before the bell rang, before school time, like a goddess with jet black hair, speaking to no one, and she'd stand there. Until I realized that I would be working with her. Her friend or boyfriend was Mike Sikowski.
No, I think that was what.
Mike Sikowski was deeply in love with Violet Barkley. But the unfortunate part, next to Violet Barkley sat George Klein, a debonair, well-dressed, handsome guy. He wore not a derby, but what? Well, anyway, somehow his girlfriend and George Klein were kind of like getting together. Mike goes to Stan Lee, and he says to Stan, I want you to fire Violet, otherwise I go. And Stanley said to him, goodbye, Mike. Mike didn't leave. Mike, again, was a beautiful, great artist, great talent, but he did not have the compassion that one should have, you know. He was just bitter, very bitter.
Alan, who was the most creative person you ever worked with or near in terms of artists? Who would you say was the most profound, creative artist that you had ever dealt with?
Inside Marvel or outside?
Inside or outside?
Well, outside, there was this comic strip called Terry and Pirates. This was drawn by Milton Kenneth, who worked for the Associated Press. And it was a very successful. He was the god of all cartoonists. I cut his work out every night. I was a kid. The New York Daily News sold for 2 cents. So you see how far back we're going. And every artist in the comic book industry looked up to this man and copied his work. And then, of course, was Flash Gordon, well illustrated by one Alex Raymond, who was unfortunately killed in an auto accident. Before he died, he also created another comic called Rip Kirby, and he also had Jungle Jim, which was part of the Flash Gordon page. And Milton Kenneth passed. I gotta tell a story about Milton Kenneth. He was like a god to me. Like kids would go to Babe Ruth, you know, you would all heard Babe Ruth. So I already was in a profession, and I was going to the Waldorf Astoria for the yearly
Cartoonist Society.
National the Goldberg was the Rubin Award, yeah. And I had a date. I was divorced at the time, and out of the men's room comes Milton Kenneth. Oh, what do you say, Mr. No, I mean, I approached the man, and I used to write to him as a kid, and I would get letters he had pansy.
Shut up.
He wrote on, he had pink stationery with gray lettering. He had Milton Caniff's signature, Terry and the Pirates, but boy, he wrote to me, I mean, and now he comes out of the bathroom about Mr. Caniff. I don't know if you remember. He says, excuse me, he says, I have people waiting for me. I can see that little kid with his head down as the athlete walked away when he was disappointed. Here was something that I look forward to meeting. I was already in the profession. I was here at the Goodman Awards in the Waldorf Astoria with my rented tuxedo. I showered that morning, I changed my socks. How dare this man walk away from me? I would not do that to a fan now. I speak to everybody. I answer every bit of mail.
And these are the things that affect a person's life, clearly. When you were doing like Captain America, Submariner, Human Torch, did you have any sense that you guys were creating a modern day mythology in America, that you were creating a new legitimate American art form? Or was it just about, how do I get my next paycheck in and feed my family? What was going through your head at that time?
To me, it was what I always wished for. I always wanted to draw, tell a story in pictures. And this is what I wanted to do. Never in my lifetime did I ever think that I would be let alone reach 88. And by the way, I just celebrated 50 years of marriage to my lovely wife, Rose. How's she taking all that?
Not even.
And one over. So, where was I before I really interrupted myself?
Captain America, the Human Torch, and Submariner. What was your going through your mind in terms of what you were doing? Was it just a job, or did you see something beyond that?
It was not just a job. To me, it was doing something a little better than digging ditches, or even though that's no crime to do with it, anything's legitimate. But it was a job. In fact, Martin Goodman had put on a play called Love on Me. It was on Broadway. We all had tickets. It was like a carnival. Everybody knew each other. The play didn't last. He had a cocktail party for movie stars that came up to the office. I remember Anne Rutherford. Now, she played in Gone with the Wind, and also
She passed away this week.
Anne Rutherford, you see, Anne Rutherford was Andy Hardy's girlfriend, Mickey Rooney in Andy Hardy series, which were very popular. And one day she came up to the office, and I saw her, and I waited till she left, and I ran out pretending to go to the men's room, and we rode down the elevator. This was a thrill for me. Because she did play in Gone with the Wind, and, you know, it really didn't reach great height. And then I remember Cowboy star Charles Starrett when he's gone. It was just a good life, and something better. Bessie Little Herman was the editor of the movie magazines. And she came over to me one day and said, Alan, would you like to come? I'm going to introduce a new star. Well, I couldn't think I was just a worker, you know, I couldn't take off. And that star was,
Shelley Winters.
what? Shelley Winters, the real name was Shirley Shrift. And she was so thin as a toothpick. And we all saw her in the latest movies, you know, before she passed us.
See, now this was in an era when people did not look upon comic book artists and writers as rock stars, as we tend to do today. It was a very different era. When the golden age came to a fairly abrupt conclusion after World War II, the servicemen came home. Servicemen and kids were the biggest audiences for comic books. There seemed to be no definitive need for superheroes after World War II, and they began to vanish en masse. Over at Timely Comics, they became Atlas Comics. And during this time period, Marvel Comics, Marvel Mystery Comics that had featured the Human Torch and Submariner became Marvel Tales, which were mystery and horror stories. Captain America became Captain America Weird Tales. All Winners Comics, which featured all the superheroes, became All Winners Westerns. Now, that was an incredible transition time. I'd like to know what that transition meant for you as an artist, as a working artist, and then what happened when the roof collapsed, which was in the early 50s. Frederick Wortham, as you may know, was an unnoted psychiatrist. He wrote a book called Seduction of the Innocent that claimed the entire post-World War II rise in juvenile delinquency was a direct result of kids reading comic books, that they were corrupting our youth, they were creating a legion of juvenile delinquents, and also that comic books were causing asthma because children were staying indoors to read them instead of playing outside in the fresh air. So comics were now being accused of being a tool of the devil, and there were federal hearings taking place, there were New York hearings taking place. People were burning comic books in different cities. So tell me now, in that transition, where you sat and how this was impacting you, if at all.
The only way I could handle it, I dialed 911. It knocked the heck out of everybody. No work, no job. You meet a nice young lady you like, you just had a divorce, and gee, you're in the middle of the limbo. That guy was a curse. I mean, he didn't know what the heck he was talking about. Because, let me say, we were frowned upon as artists. And now we are looked upon. How are we looked upon?
Rock stars. Rock stars, definitely.
I have a following both here in the country and Europe. I have one fan in Germany. Keeps sending me birthday gifts and all kind. And I tell him he doesn't have to do it, but it does me well. I feel good that when I send a drawing, I take a commission, and I don't really gouge the fans. When they tell me how happy my art has made them, it makes me feel good. I love to draw now, and it beats sitting in a rocking chair, I'll tell you that much. But I want to say one more thing before I go ahead. My good friend here, Michael Uslan's new movie is coming out in July, The Dark Knight Rises. And I want to say to Mr. Uslan, I want to wish you the best on this movie, and go out and outdo the Avengers. I don't know if everyone knows that Mr. Uslan here is the executive producer of the Batman movies. And I feel honored to be sitting next to him. And I'd like to introduce his son, David, in front here.
Yeah.
Who, what the heck is stand up? Let him see.
This is all about you.
Yeah,
Keep the focus on you. Actually, I have a question.
Yeah, go David.
I got a question for you. When you got started in this business, what did your family and friends think about you working in the comic business? And did their view of you in this business change when that book came out, The Seduction of the Innocent?
Well, David, my father encouraged me, as I said before, because if I didn't go that day for the job, if I went the following day, I might have been winding up the conviction or something, I don't know. But I listened to my father, may he rest in peace, he's gone so many years. But I owe him for being where I am today. And as far as comics, I'll tip my hat to anybody in the industry that I feel is really good. I don't mind doing that. I met Stan in Albuquerque last week. I came here, so we really didn't have a breather. And I said to Stan, I really look forward to being on a panel with him. Now, I worked for Stan. We were both kids, and he had to leave for some emergency, and I took over the panel, which has now 2. When they heard Stanley left, the other artists didn't show except Len, Wine, the writer, and myself. And we did a great job. The room was packed, the auditorium was packed. And we had them in the palm of our hands, stories, jokes, kidding around. So what can I say?
That wasn't the case in the 50s, though. That's duck and cover, or head for heels. Did it drive you out of the comic book business at that point? Did you go into advertising or another area?
No, I wanted to collect. There was no work, and I said, I just met Rose. And what is a guy to do? How can you court a woman without a job? But we managed, got around, went into a little business, did well. And I was brought back to comics several years ago by a dentist in New York who was a historian, Dr. Michael Vasello. And from then, it was on the way up. Other people came into my life, like one Stephen Freiberger, who's now my webmaster. After 50, come on, God forgive me, I forget. But, and he's also my agent. He gets me all these conventions to go to. And I've appeared in so many different conventions, and I like to say without getting mushy or anything, I believe. And I always say, let's be nice to each other. We can't be everybody's friend, but let's try.
Does anyone have any questions for Al?
I got one other question.
Okay, Dan?
So when Captain America came out, what did you think of that movie?
Well, we were invited. Oh, did you want to add something?
No, just sort
We were
of.
invited to the premiere showing in California. We walked the red and white carpet, we partied with the stars, a couple of the Howley Commandos, and it was an experience for us. Now, I mean, we always looked up to movie stars as gods, you know. Today it's all different, you know. Running shows with people who are in the movie industry. Making a movie is a hard thing, I can see that. And that's why my admiration for Michael Uslan will continue, because he didn't say or take no for an answer. He knocked on doors until. And that Dark Knight, that was the list of the Dark Knight, was a huge success. And man, when you feel something, and you have the feeling that it's something, you do it, and you knock on the doors.
What did you think of Captain America?
What's that?
What did you
What did you
think
think
of
of the movie?
Captain America?
Captain America.
Oh, that was great. It was a great movie. I had a funny experience, though. I was sitting in the back of the El Capitan Theater, and a gentleman came over to me. He says, I'm Chris Evans' grandfather. You sit in a very important seat. And he caught me off guard. And I said, without thinking, I'm a very important person. And he walked away. Even today, I want to apologize to the man. I mean, That's
We're gonna get him on the phone, we're gonna make this right.
You get me Chris Evans' phone number, email, I'll write him. It, you know,
We didn't even know that.
Frank Sinatra in a movie, A Hole in There, when he said he owned in this movie, he owned a little hotel, Frank Sinatra was living with his son. He was always in trouble, financial trouble. And he looked at his son, he said, you know, son, if you have a nickel or a dollar in your pocket, but you're dressed up, you walk to the Waldorf Astoria, they will tip their hat and open the door for you. Meaning closed to me, but thank God I'm not in that position. Their life has been good to me. My wife has been good to me. I had 2 heart attacks close to 2 years ago. I got 6 stents. I'm a Gemini. 2 wives, 2 heart attacks.
Captain America, Bucky.
No, I have 2 children from my first marriage and 2 children from my second marriage. And I love to read my horoscope because it says good things.
Well,
Because you.
on behalf of Two-Face, we would all like to thank you for having that kind of a life. Let me say this as we head to a conclusion here. You know, I'm a comic book fan. I've been a fan since I learned to read from comics before I was 4 years old. I'm a collector. I have been collecting since about the same time. I became a comic book historian. I love history, and I love history of the things that matter most to me in life. So for me to be here with Alan today, somebody who was there virtually at the beginning of this industry, somebody who represents, along with Stan Lee, the last men standing from the golden age of Marvel Comics, somebody who survived and adapted when everything switched over to detective and mystery and Western and crime stories, to somebody who went off and made a separate life for himself and came back many, many years later, not so much that the world rediscovered Alan in the comic book world, but that Alan rediscovered the comic book world. And having the opportunity to meet him when I was 15 years old and get an original drawing from him. And by the way, Alan has original art. He does original commissions. He's downstairs at booth 135. He's at alanbellman.com. And if you want a piece of history crafted from this man's hands, you might want to stop there and get a piece of art from Alan. But it's Alan Bellman today, as he is rip-roaring toward his 90th birthday to catch up with Stan Lee. This is the spirit that I recognize of a kid. Don't be fooled by the exterior, by the gray hair. This is a kid with a burning love of comic books and a burning passion for art that he is able to do and do so well. All you have to do is go downstairs and walk by his booth when you see the fans there, and you see the fire in his eyes, and you see him and you listen to him talking to each and every fan. He lights up their lives, they light up his life. It's a wonderful thing to see what comic books have done in a life and what he gives back to the fans. That's why it was important for me to be here today. And we're going to reprise this down in Miami in SuperCon, and I think we're going to do the same thing in San Diego. So you folks who knew enough, even though this is the first Comic-Con, to come and meet Alan and hear him speak, you are lucky souls, because you have had a chance to spend a few minutes with one of the true living legends of comic books. Ladies and gentlemen, Alan Bellman.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you. And if you care to speak or say anything, please pass it live. You don't have to write anything. And don't forget, The Dark Knight Rises will arrive this July.